for students who can't make it. For all of you, welcome. My name is Dr. Jarvinen, and I am the CRCA director. So that stands for the Center for Undergraduate Research and Creative Activity. Some of you are becoming familiar faces and names, so it's really nice to see you again. At the center, what we try to do is support student applied experiences in and out of the classroom. And we do that in a variety of ways. We also try to provide professional development and, you know, again, passive and active ways of coming into the applied experience so that you leave here with a competitive portfolio, right? And the faculty mentors and staff mentors are a big part of that story. And this, the Lunch and Learn, is a great way for us to invite various expert faculty and staff into our doors and to have them share their knowledge with you, and to also kind of get you interested and knowledgeable about what's happening on campus, so that if you're interested in doing a research or applied experience or creative project, that you know how to come about it. So the Lunch and Learns are a passive way, but it's a great way for you to know what the center is all about. And I'm not going to share all that information today, but I do want to introduce our guest speaker and a couple faces that I see here. So, to our guest speaker, Professor Lynn Pantusko-Hench, thank you so much for offering to lead the workshop today. And I'm going to let you introduce yourself in a minute, but Tom Howard, just raise your hand. He is our graduate assistant at CRCA. So it's always nice to, if you connect faces and names. I see a couple of faculty. So Professor Wang in the bio department is here as well. It's good for you guys to see these faces. And I thought I saw Professor Rausch. Can't see your face, but thank you for being here. He's a great source and advocate of applied experiences. So thank you so much. Would it be okay, Professor Pantusko, if we have the students just briefly introduce themselves?
Of course. Yeah, go for it.
And then you got the stage.
Oh, no, I'm good. I'm sick of hearing and seeing me, to be honest. So bring it on.
So why don't we start with Ethan, since you're the next one to me.
Hello, pleasure to meet you all. I'm Ethan Gregoire. I'm currently a health science major here at Westfield State University. I'm a transfer student. I'm currently a junior. And yeah, that's about it. Yeah. Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. I'm sorry. What did you say your major was?
My major is health science.
Health science.
Yeah. Sorry, I do have some connection issues, so if I'm kind of going in and out, I do apologize. So.
Okay. Thank you, Nikki.
Hi, I'm Nikki Bartlett. I'm a first semester senior, and I'm a movement science major with a concentration in adventure education.
Oh, that sounds fun. Thank you. Caitlin?
Hi, I'm Caitlin Kogan. I'm a junior, and my major is movement science with a concentration in sports medicine.
Great. Welcome. Ben?
Hello, Ben Dickinson, movement science major. I'm currently a sophomore, concentration of exercise science.
Welcome. Professor Wang, I'm gonna go ahead and let you introduce yourself too.
Oh, I'm Marlon Wen. I'm the professor in the biology department. Yep.
Tom?
Hi everyone, I'm Tom. Like Dr. Jarvin had said before, I am the graduate assistant for the CRCA Center. If anyone's thinking about registration is now open for the CRCA celebration for the spring. So if you have any questions at all in terms of submissions, in terms of registering, or just little tips and tricks for forming up your poster, feel free to contact me. I'll leave my email in the chat later on.
Great, thank you. Shane?
Hello, my name is Shane Bogley. I'm a senior and I'm a physical education major.
Nice to meet you. Carly?
Hi, I'm Carly Walsh. I'm a junior and I'm a movement science major with a concentration in sports medicine.
Great, thank you. Oh, I want you to say your name because I said it wrong last time. I'm sorry.
Nareli.
Yeah, Nareli, thank you.
No worries. I'm Nareli. I'm a sophomore at Westfield and I'm majoring in physical education.
Thank you. Robbie Nelson?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Robbie Nelson. I'm currently a junior in concentration in exercise science, and I also play football for Westfield.
Awesome. You able to practice?
Not at the moment, but
Okay, you got time, right? Thank you. And let's see, Junior?
My name is Junior Medeiros. I'm a junior currently in the movement science department with a concentration exercise science.
Great, thank you. Professor Rausch?
Still here. Hi, everybody. Bob Rausch, Department Chair, Movement Science, Sport and Leisure Studies, and certainly would welcome anybody who's interested in coming over to the dark side if you're not already.
They're a fun group. Thank you.
We are.
Sorry, Kayla?
Hi, my name is Kayla Gutierrez. I'm a first year student and I'm majoring in movement science of a concentration in sports medicine.
Great, thank you. Okay, Professor Hench, I'm gonna let you take it over.
All right, well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I've very much enjoyed having Dr. Jarnovan into our senior seminar in sports medicine and our work with her assistant, Tom Howard. They've been a great support to us, and it has helped for our sports medicine students to have an opportunity to engage in the research process and build their resumes and partake in KRCA events, whether in person or virtual. I'm sure we're all really eager to get back to the in-person part because milling around the poster presentations is really rewarding and a whole lot of fun. I also want to thank Dr. Rausch for being here, my department chair. He's a great guy for showing up. Do not feel obligated to hear the whole hour because he knows what we do. So he's great, but certainly the type of department we have between the leadership and the students. I appreciate everyone being here and being involved, even if we might bribe you just a little bit with your professional development points. So what I'd like to do, and for Professor Wang, if you're the only other faculty member on, if I get to steps where I can kind of share insights more from the faculty point of view and how you might construct assignments or how I use some of this instructional technology in and out of the classroom, just holler and I'll kind of loop that in. I'll probably cater more to the student experience since they represent more of our audience here, but just either make notes, interrupt me at any point, and I'll make sure I offer what you might be interested in as well. So I'm gonna do a little screen sharing and kind of skip around a bit. I do not have like a formal presentation because I really wanted this to be a little bit different. So what I'm gonna do is give a little preview of what I do as it relates to the KRCA opportunities on campus. And this is a course shell that is used in the fall. So in the fall semester, I teach the seminar for sports medicine students. That is a professional and academic development course that does have a research component to it. So prior to KRCA being the entity that it is on campus, we used to do all sorts of variations of posters or presentations and, through lots of experimentation and trial and error, tried various ways. We even had hosted our own little poster session in the department where then the younger students, sports medicine students in particular, could kind of preview what the seniors did. So one of the neat parts about KRCA is it provides obviously a setting for all of us to kind of build toward, but it creates that community sense on campus, which I think is so nice and obviously so lacking from our lives right now. But what's kind of neat about KRCA is it has the creative piece built into the title. So it's not a one size fits all. So it allows faculty like me to offer a research and presentation opportunity in a way that works in the parameters of our class, because as Dr. Rausch will attest, our enrollment numbers are all over the place. So sometimes I have 40 students who might be enrolled in one or two sections of this course. Sometimes it's more like 25, but it's almost always a situation that's not as delightful as a one-on-one independent study where we could, from soup to nuts, do experimental research and have you have something that might even be, truly publishable. So I have to kind of balance the parameters that exist by giving students an opportunity that has value. And then for me, the part that, I'm going to speak about today that probably differs from other faculty on campus is the opportunity to have these extensions through these assignments and Kirka opportunity that result in sort of like what I would call real life multimedia artifacts. So one of the things I like to do is, obviously do the research that provides us with some evidence-based approaches, but then take what we learn and really adapt it from a research to practice point of view and say, all right, in a practical setting, how do we use this? And so I really do encourage the sports medicine students to be sort of disseminators of this research because it's otherwise all kind of locked away in these journals that the regular people in typical practices aren't probably engaging in on a regular basis. So I kind of view this as a really cool opportunity to do that, but also take that practical application approach. It's all good and well to do research, to understand it, to be well-versed, but if we're not using it to, create best practices or better routines or injury prevention or performance enhancement or, whatever area we kind of delve into, I think we've sort of, done a disservice with the information we have. And the other part of me, I think, and if remote learning hasn't made us ultra realistic about the attention span of our audience, I don't know what will, right? You're already probably like, is she going to show us anything? She's still talking. I want to deliver this high quality evidence-based information in really practical ways, whether it's a brief TED Talk sort of approach, a blog that we can scroll through and read. Yes, I mean bullets, because we're all a bunch of skimmers nowadays, or even a podcast so we can listen. Some of you might just be busying yourself and having me buzz in the background. I don't know if that's as good as what you'll find on Pandora, but I get it. This is how we consume information. So I am a complete realist with that. So let me walk through a couple things, and for the professors on, they can kind of get a glimpse of how I structure the assignment portion of this assignment. And you'll see I have like a sampling of weeks. Obviously, this is something that's peppered in throughout the course. We have other things we do and cover. So I'm going to kind of just hit you with some highlights. But basically, when we kick off this research part, this is where the guests from Kirka come in and they talk about what they do in a little more global way. And then we segue to how I will have them work with that. We go through like how to write a good research question. And ultimately, my students are doing an elaborate version of an annotated bibliography. So they are coming up with 10 primary peer-reviewed studies. They're developing a research question and a hypothesis that guides the search. They find at least 10 studies that meet a whole host of typical criteria for a good primary source. And then they have to annotate all of them. They summarize their findings, again, into some themes, some concepts, and then they have to do a section that's reflective that leads to practical strategies. How will we use it? So it's a multi-step thing. It's a beast of an assignment that spans a good chunk of the semester, but it has a lot of value. I think the students who have had me in class know I am not a busy work kind of girl. You will never see picky little, I like to grade it busy work, never. Everything's purposeful and kind of aligned with what the outcome is that we're looking for. So if they click on this annotated bit, I don't know why it's gonna give me that, but for any faculty on here, I can go back to that, but they will have a rubric that outlines what I just said for their gathering of evidence part. And that's what happens at the start here. I link to the Kirka website and APA guidelines and share some examples and so forth. Once they get rolling on that, we, like most others, make their research project into a poster. One of the things we've done is we've taken the Kirka PowerPoint template, and I might have to share and reshare when this pops itself open, but we've made a movement science one based on sort of the categories in this assignment. Give me one quick second to reshare. I had a student once who was even more OCD than me, and I loved every minute of it. And he took this and lined it up like perfectly well. And it's all a lovely parallel and perpendicular start for the most part. And then students can adapt this, but this is sort of the segments we go through, beginning obviously with the introduction, the review of lit, the references kind of get scooted around, and Dr. Jarnovan does a great job of showing examples of posters that are well done, that are aesthetically pleasing, and some that are, off. And it's a very it's a very helpful compare and contrast. You can easily begin to pick up on what makes a nicely laid out poster. So, and I know plenty of people do sessions on that, but we have, again, made one for movement science that is our own. And that's been good. So students, again, one piece of the assignment sort of lifts into the next. And I think that is relatively effective. So that's the poster piece. But then we say, all right, we've got, we also do a section on the Kirka abstracts, but I realize that's probably another lunch and learn. But they will then ask for the abstract, which is a brief summary with some components to it. Each semester is a little different with the amount of words and stretch that you get with it. But mostly it's a good experience in how do I concisely, academically, scientifically summarize what I've done and not make it sound like it's, you know, a personal narrative. So you learn that writing style that gets submitted through the steps. And then my last couple pieces are a bit more like unique to me, I would say. And that's what I'll spend some time focusing in on. So for those of you who are here from a movement science and sports medicine perspective, you can begin to think, I'm going to have this long-term project. It's going to have lots of different parts. I should start thinking about a topic now. Over the summer, just let it, you know, if you're at the beach, just let it fill your thoughts every now and then. If what am I interested in? What are the questions I want answers to? Did I read or hear or see something that, you know, sparks my interest? So coming in knowing a topic is definitely helpful. And obviously, if you care to get a jump start, you can start looking at peer-reviewed articles. The worst is you get a good pile go through, and then you can then really sift through and choose the best. So those are some preliminary steps. Any questions at this point on how we kind of lead in to then my multimedia take on this?
No, but I do want to thank you for, you know, really nicely summarizing the process of what your goal is. And I love the fact that you're, like you said, you're intentionally giving students the opportunity to apply their learning and to do it on something they're passionate about, which is something we're all trying to support. So yeah, thank you for summarizing that process. So
my pleasure. And for the faculty on the call, Kirka is very good about communicating their deadlines, and they have a stepwise progression. So Lemise knows, like at the beginning of the semester, if she hasn't already given it to me, I'm going to reach out and say all the deadlines you have, whether it's, you know, the application to present or the register rather, or the abstract or whatever. I try to line the course up with those deadlines, and that's gotten smoother. I won't say that was like perfect out of the gates. It absolutely wasn't. I had to take what I had been doing and relate it to what she was starting and refining. And I think we got a good groove now. So I'm happy to be here and doing that. The other piece too is, again, with my hatred of all things busy work, you do have this in-depth opportunity to delve into something you care about. And I always laugh, like some of you will pick topics I don't know a darn thing about. So like green light, you know, it's kind of neat. So we all learn something, but you really get to dig on a topic. And you don't have to worry about what other people were interested in. You can really kind of personalize that. But the other piece of this that she alluded to early on is, well, they want to help you build your resume, so do I. So I want students to leave with some actual lines on their resume. So we do a little bit of self-publishing so they can have some actual live links that they put on their resume to work that is out there. So I'll show you a couple examples of how that goes. And then I think I'll backtrack and explain them more in depth. So I'll kind of go broad and then more detailed. So we have a public speaking component to this course. I'm certain it's probably not something I would have to include, but I really choose to include it because I think it is so important. So when you're invited to do something like this, or whether it's a boardroom or whether it's an interview, you have that much more experience preparing and relating and you know, being authentically comfortable in front of an audience. It takes a long time, but once you get it, you feel good. And then you look forward to these things. And this is just fun. And it's not some sweat of the brow sort of moment. So, so we do talk about public speaking in the course. And then we look at some sample TED Talks. I show a really funny TED Talk about how to make a TED Talk about nothing. It's really comical. I'll save you on that one. But so there are some examples built into the course. And then what students do is they follow the guidelines provided to basically make their own TED Talk. And I'm going to show you that quick. Sorry, all of these are multi. Hold on one second.
That's really cool. My husband just was invited to give a TEDx talk at his institution, and it was
cool. Big. Yeah, I'm totally skimming the word. They probably hate me. I'm one big plagiarism on that. But so where is he giving it and on what topic?
Oh, he did at Western New England, and it was on he's a neuroscientist, so he talked about the gut brain, but watching him go through the process of being trained, and it's it's a big process, but it's really rewarding too, I think. So that's cool that you do it with your students.
Very cool. Yeah, it's hard to compete with neuroscience, but I bet he said ease off the gluten in the bread. For all the good reasons, right? A little balance. So, so I have my own little landing page for a website. So, forgive me, but it's just an easy place to put links that I want and not wait for the university to upload them. So here are a couple of things that I have. So I'm going to show you what the TED Talks look like. So we put them, so I publish them on a playlist, and it's public. Students have the option to submit privately, but they usually elect to have it public. And so then they have a link, and again, this is sort of where I did this before Kirka had to move virtual. So now there's even sort of a better mechanism for doing that. But basically we have a playlist, and you can see there's a couple semesters worth on this particular playlist. And it's kind of neat. So students all have their presentations. There are some that are done, let's see if I can find one. There's a space in Ely that you can actually it's almost like a black box. Is that what it's called? Would you let me know where to go for that one? It's a great stage to do this.
It is. We also, and I don't know if you know this, but last year they introduced a whole new redesigned like a TV recording stage that faculty and students can use. It's intended for them. I'm not sure. I mean, I don't think there was a lot of announcement just because COVID hit and then things, but there is that new kind of resource on campus as well.
Awesome. So I would love all the contact information when that becomes obviously more accessible in a lesser COVID world. So this is an example of what the setting looked like, at least at last we had access to it. And so this is kind of cool because it starts to feel like that stage of an actual TED Talk. And we keep the time. I think this semester they had to be like 3 minutes or under. And again, we're creating something that is realistic, that is somewhat professional, and it kind of delivers in a format in which, as receivers of information, we're much more apt to listen to. So I encourage students to we do LinkedIn profiles in this course too, and then I encourage students to put these links on their LinkedIn, put these links on their resume, and so future employers, future graduate schools, they can see our students live. And again, this is not obviously published in a true TED Talk, but it's compiled in something, somewhat academic and professional looking. And I think it makes students look like they've taken that extra step, that they have, built themselves up as a candidate, probably in a way in which I think plenty of other students have not. So I think this is a great look. And then you can obviously look over in the margin and you can go to my website and listen to as many of those as you like. But again, students are a riot when you talk about the preparation that goes into delivering this 2 to 3 minute speech, and having, Sophia looks lovely here, and her attire and her demeanor and all of the characteristics that go into becoming a more capable public speaker. They really get to practice those. And again, by the time they get to the actual live Kirka event, they've done their song and dance so many times. They're like, this is easy, piece of cake, and they enjoy the experience. So I really do think they get to see the benefit of the practice, the repetition, the preparation. They get to see that payoff, and then have that joy that we get when we actually get to talk about something we're excited about. And it's contagious. So that part's fun.
Yeah, that's true.
Another weekly module I have in Plato is devoted to the student blog. So I've done this a variety of ways, but basically we use Blogger, and I'll show you the back end of Blogger in a moment to see what that looks like, but I'm just gonna scroll through. It looks basically like any other blog, and I've just compiled this myself, and students are responsible for obviously a catchy title and a graphic, and they make their own bios on here. So again, we're using multimedia approaches, I think very real world examples. You can obviously just begin to scroll through and see the wide range of topics. They are in fact pretty much all over the place. Some are very focused on a particular injury or ailment. Some are on a certain population, like exercise with the elderly, or a modality like, music as rehab, and movement and dance and those sorts of things. So there's some cool applications. The chronic low back, who hasn't lived through that? And so you can go back through and you can see some examples. And so let me see if I can find it. Just gonna randomly click on one here. you can begin to see how students learn to structure their text. This is actually not a really great example. It's not really super done in terms of use of text and spacing and bullets and color and what have you. But you see some examples. So there's areas for improvement. It's a growth process for sure. Again, some start off with a question, some use numbers and bullets as a strategy, complementary graphics. So we talk about finding those and citing those or making our own, and again, trying to make them engaging to the reader. And again, the about me and the academic references. So this all continues to have this research to practice approach. And again, students, forgive me, it's kind of tricky for me to see with my Zoom windows, but ultimately they can copy and paste, and you can see when I highlight. Can you see when I highlight on my link? Does that show for you all?
Yeah.
So then you could literally copy and paste that onto your resume, onto your LinkedIn, onto if you're on Indeed or wherever else you happen to be. You can do that. I can show you the inside of Blogger a little bit as to how to develop those, but basically making the blog layout is something I do. If you had an eager student who was inclined to want to take on that role, or maybe that's a good independent study, or something else, the process of creating the skeleton, so to speak, and the outline of the blog itself is certainly a creative activity that is a bit painstaking, but once you'll get the hang of it. But then when students, I send students an invitation to be like guest authors on it, and then they can go in and make their own post. And so there's always sort of pending posts depending on how involved or uninvolved I want to be in the process. I can pop in and give feedback as they go. They have a rubric to follow and so forth. And then I show them a bunch of blogs that I've written for various publications that I have done outside of my own little blogging. So they see examples of that. So I'm going to kind of go back and show you a rubric I use that I think is very helpful. So again, everything's sort of a stepwise progression. In most of these things, I think I accidentally shared. No.
I love the fact that you're allowing them to create their own material that then they can share with, easily, share with prospective graduate schools or faculty, jobs. We're trying to do the same thing with Kirka. Tom has worked really hard to try and create a personalized page, kind of like you.
Well, I think last semester, I honestly didn't put them together on YouTube because you had the string of videos.
Yeah.
So you almost saved me that step. My students individually uploaded on YouTube. So we didn't make that a whole class playlist because Kirka had the page that had, and those were kind of cool. So Tom, if you did that, I like how it came out where you could see like the preview. I don't know what kind of HTML headache that was behind the scenes, but I liked what it looked like on my receiving end.
Right. I was just going to mention earlier that, you were talking about LinkedIn and putting the TEDx talks to there, if students in your class, I'm not sure if you're doing the same exact class design for the spring that you were doing in the fall, but, all this work you put into the students, get prepared. They really streamlined their presentation, but, what's great about the celebration being virtual this year is that, they'll always have a link to their page as well to put on. So not only will they have a YouTube link through your course, but through the Kirka celebration, they'll have a link to put on their LinkedIn whenever prospective, business employers or grad schools want to check it out. It'll have their, picture bio for their presentation, as well as a link to their video or poster that they're doing. So it's sort of even further step to document, the great work that they're doing.
Yeah. And, it's funny because students, who presented in person and presented virtually reached out and said, whatever you do, can you please not get rid of this? Because when we go back to in person, and our intent is to keep both because it is such a great way to document their work and for them to show it to friends and family. And yeah, it's really kind of exciting.
Well, and to that point, maybe we can figure out if when this goes back to being in person and my students are still making their TED Talk videos, maybe we can still have a way to post them through Kirka that kind of becomes more university official, so to speak, than just my little YouTube bit. Because I welcome Tom's tech support. He's good. I'm going to reel him on in.
I wrote myself a note to say, talk to Lynn about TED Talk, incorporating it. So yeah.
Well, I think too, we get these ideas and these projects, and while our campus does have a collaborative feel, like ultimately there's a bit of a silo effect when you're kind of putting it together yourself. And, I don't, for any IT guys listening, like certainly they're helpful as needed, but it's not always like that bit. Sometimes it's the world that's not quite IT and not quite Center for Instructional Technology. And I know we all adore them, but like sometimes there's a little spot in the middle where you're kind of alone and you're like, how do I figure this out? And I find myself there more often than not. But so this is sort of our little segment dedicated to the blog. So if you're tuning in and saying, well, I'm not going to be part of your class and I'm not going to get to be on that blog, well, make your own. If you want to get your name out there in anything, if you want to be a strength and conditioning coach, you want to be a personal trainer, you want to, be a marketable physical educator, whatever you want to do. And I know there's students probably from other backgrounds. I can zing out a few more examples, but why can't you start writing about your thoughts on things in a professional way? And again, you can kind of loop it back into your LinkedIn. I would certainly just give you make sure you put good quality work out there, but we have our Reading and Writing Center on campus that would happily help you learn to write and revise. So I started students off with looking at, what's out there for sports medicine blogs, and just to start to see what other people are doing, right? See what you like, see what you don't like. So that was a first step in understanding. Of course, you get pop-ups. So you see kind of what's out there. That was the first step. What do other people have a blog about? What's already been done? I showed them some of my blogs, which I'll spare, but like, I've written for a variety of places, and it's so interesting. Like one of the blogs I wrote for the National Institute of Health had about a gazillion steps to jump through. It was like, I've never seen more of a process in my life. Like if you want to joke about government oversight and red tape, holy moly, it was a lot of attention devoted to like a 3-page blog. So that sort of made me laugh. I'm like, aren't there world crises to solve? So anyway, that one was well polished and it was a process, whereas other things are a little bit more routine with less rigor to the steps. So it just depends. But so what I do is provide some guidelines, and instead of developing my own guidelines, I used some from a professional organization that I know Dr. Rausch and I are both active members in, as are a handful of other folks in our department. And so I thought for students, what a good experience to learn to write in a way in which that would actually be published. And in fact, I encourage students to send out their manuscripts to be published. That's kind of fun too, if you can get it somewhere else. So these are some examples of guidelines. So again, if anyone wants to create a different type of blog assignment, students, if you're thinking, I just might want to write to represent myself and start to get my name out there. And I know plenty of people who have done blogs before books, where then they go back and compile sort of these little bits and pieces they've done over the years. So it's kind of I'm going to say fun way to write, because it's not, some 15-page research paper throwdown. It's kind of, I think it can be fun. So here are just some interesting bits, what goes into your title, your headshot, your bio, relevant photos. Here's a good website for free photos, which is great. And obviously we talk about referencing ones we may borrow from somewhere. Your word count, learning to write within a word count. I think anyone who's done that appreciates that, like this National Institute of Health thing was 750 words. I'm like, again, there's gazillion pages of government website, but this is 750 words. And like, they were not giving me 751. So it is harder to write in a concise, informative, effective fashion like that than if you would have given me the 15 pages just to run myself out. So I do think learning that, using how to use the right amount of jargon and vernacular, that you demonstrate an expertise in what you're talking about, but not so much that you turn off a reader. So I tease students who are very heavily into sports medicine injuries that get a little more medical than my expertise. I'm always like, once you lose me on the medical terminology, you probably lost some other people in your audience too. So we talk about that style of writing. And again, I think it's just practical. I think that's what people read more often than not. So, audience, acronyms. I like the call to action component to this too. You can tell it's part of a kind of a service-oriented professional organization, but all of those blogs that the students do end up in a, what can you do? Practical strategies. Here are 3, tips. And we kind of take that approach. And again, evidence-based strategies is what we're all about. In this case, I got to be a guest blogger on this. I've done that a few times. And so every now and then, now I'm at the point where if I have a good idea, I pitch them and they usually let me do it. So it's kind of fun once you get your foot in the door with some of these things. So I can kind of pick and choose what I write about here or there. And then this gives you like some examples of headlines and what, so you see like the 3 strategies for, you know, people love this stuff. I sometimes kind of chuckle, but these are, again, the best practices. So students, again, are getting that information consumption element here and that literacy piece, and how do we convey ideas? How do we attract readers? How do we express our expertise in a really user-friendly way? So
will an organization like this allow students to submit as well? Or are there other more professional sites that allow for student voices?
That's a great question. And I would say that they would welcome students. They maintain a, not to be self-indulgent, but it's a pretty decent caliber of author on there, where it's often people who represent different groups. In fact, when I did the National Institute of Health thing, I represented this group as the blogger, as the writer for that. But I would still encourage students to do it, because then you get the feedback from them, and it is even maybe that much more revised and polished for the next go around. I would love to be more informed about the latter part of your question about where else can students submit. I often encourage them to do like sport, exercise, or like interest specific things. So, you know, like I'm heavily involved in a professional soccer coaching association. And so I write for them, and parts of it are peer reviewed, but parts, you know, there's different avenues of writing from them that range from a little bit more formal to informal. So those are sometimes the leads I give students. And sometimes places will publish certain things in print and certain things on their websites. You can kind of get in on the website, which is a little more casual, but then they'll pick up, if they like what you do, you might get yourself in print. And of course, I use the expression getting some ink the other day in front of my kids, meaning like in the newspaper, and they were like, huh, what's that mean? I'm like, the days of seeing your name in print, it's just not what it once was. But
they'd ask you about tattoos, but
oh my God, probably, right? And they know how I feel about that. So joking aside, this is an example, but I think too, for any faculty on here thinking, I might use an assignment like this, or a student who just wants to write, it's a great starting point. And then you could find, you know, I'm sure every professional organization has their rendition of this, and it'll be specific to their audience. And that brings me back to the blog assignment here. When I go to this, I might have to finagle screens for a quick minute just to, so if I'm making funny eye contact, I have 2 screens, and I'm moving you all, you just don't know it. Whoop, maybe I am. And then I'm gonna see, I might just need to, give me 1 second just to make myself log into this. I think that might be the better way to do it. Okay, so I'm just gonna kind of click around. This won't be a perfect example of what to share here, but this is sort of the inside look at Blogger. So when a student comes in, they click on new post. And then you can see it's pretty much like a what you see is what you get sort of thing. They put the title up here, they have their page, some linking options, all your same like editorial tools. And then you can preview before publishing. And then that saves. I want to say I log in with my Google account pretty much just is linked to this. So it's probably helpful for students to have those. You obviously can go through, if you were developing your own blog, and use some of these tools here to obviously make it a little bit more of a sophisticated operation. You can enable or disable comments and have different layout. I think widgets is what they're going to call them on here. So you can start to see where there are all sorts of little bits, and you kind of just drag and drop these sorts of things on your website, or your blog rather, the way you'd like for them to be. So there's some themes you can use. So there's the behind the scenes playing around of Blogger, but I think it's pretty intuitive. It's free. You end up with a relatively decent URL. You can see I have a couple of other little projects I've done over the years. But mostly I just wanted you to see. So students can have their little work in progress. They can have their own shareable link. And then those are just due when the assignment is due. Like we could have caught, you know, obviously the missing graphic here was probably addressed at some point. So yeah, there's lots of cool settings, themes, layouts. as you make a blog, it's a good place to have a landing page until you maybe have your own website for that sort of purpose. I don't know as much about like the advertising opportunities and so forth. I never really thought I would quite strike it rich on that. So that kind of gives you a sense of what I do for the TED Talk piece, what I do for the blogs. The last piece are podcasts. And for anyone with an iPhone, you probably have it on here and don't even know it. Give me a second. I love when I hide things on myself. But you might have your little voice recorder app, which I don't know if mine just got buried in something. Oh, here we go. So, gosh, I'll show it to you on here. Give me one quick second.
No, I think it's in utility. Is it the voice memos?
Yeah, I'm just going to show you my screen. It's so lame, but eek. Do you see it right there? Because I think when I go to share my screen with and ignore whatever other nonsense you're seeing on my phone. I have children, so anything's possible. Oh, that's a pretty safe screen. That looks very work friendly, doesn't it? It looks like I do lots of work on my phone. The Amazon's on the home page. All right, so, but that's an easy voice recorder. And what you can do directly from a phone, so your most basic podcasting is simply just recording your voice, obviously in as quiet a control the setting as you can. I've not formalized that into an assignment because I want the visual piece for this particular course, but I think for students, again, wanting to kind of just get more comfortable with these modalities, on the functional point, you just record your voice. You can go back and edit it and kind of move some clips back together. Like if you have a gaffe in the middle of it and you want to take that out and salvage the pieces on either end. And then you can just simply upload that link to a Google Drive, or you could probably use the shared drives on our campus email system, which I'm learning, but I'm a bit of a Mac girl. But you ultimately you're uploading to something where you get a link. I think that's really the whole point. And then you can get into any of the various podcasting types of place to house your podcast, but you're probably not all quite ready for that at this point. So I would say just playing around with the idea of recording yourself and getting comfortable with it. If you listen to podcasts on an iHeartRadio or anywhere else, you begin to get, a sense of what you might like about the ones you listen to. Most of the ones I listen to are divided into segments. That divides up the space and the time. It shifts the focus. It gives the listener something to anticipate and kind of know when and to what extent they want to tune in. So I think that's an opportunity for doing it. I'm going to try to share one other thing. I don't know if on Zoom I can just share my hold on a second. My screen as it is. I don't think I can, but I'm on a Mac and I have GarageBand on there. Has anybody used that before? Any musically inclined folks?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have zero musical aptitude. However, it functions more for people who want to do some layered of things and some background. So honestly, you get your theme music pretty easily for your podcast there, but it also has all sorts of recording and editorial components to it, where if you want to, savvy it up a little bit, you could do it in GarageBand. I'm fairly certain you could record some content clips and then pop them into GarageBand and then edit, whether that's, again, some layering with music or effects or what have you. Some of those are fun. I'm going to show one quick example. I usually, again, like to give models for students. And I'm going to show you a list of podcasts that I love. And this is sort of an interview style podcast, but for anyone who's interested in sports and exercise and that sort of thing, again, this is a good example. So this is John O'Sullivan is the founder of Changing the Game Project. And it's like, the trifecta of media. He's got the blog, the podcast, the book.
Yeah.
He actually came, Dr. Jarnivan, he actually was a guest speaker in Longmeadow a few years ago.
Oh, I missed it. Yeah, I read his book. I really liked it.
Did you? Oh, good. Yep. I handed out to all the obnoxious sports parents.
Oh,
I'm like, here, take this, please read it and come back. And he also does a TED Talk, so it's cool to see. Let me just grab where I am on that.
Youth sports understands.
So this is cool. So I actually give my coaching students who are on the call, they had an assignment where they had to choose any of these podcasts and summarize it and give some takeaways for the rest of the class. And we did it in an online discussion. But again, like many faculty, I really like to differentiate the learning. And so students didn't all have to listen to the same podcast. They got to go through 213 of them and figure out which one they were really interested in. And then when they shared them back with the rest of the class, there was a bunch of, oh, I got to listen to that one, or I'll listen to. And so I loved the combination of hearing student reactions to podcasts I had already listened to, and seeing what they took away compared to what I did, but also hearing them summarize something in a way that I'm like, oh, I need to go back to that one and tune in. So, and this is great. I actually read, it's funny, this one just popped up and I have not listened to it yet, but I read Dan Heath's book on creating moments. And the Kirka folks will love to hear that you actually do that through Kirka. Like your event in itself probably follows some of the different hallmarks of creating these pivotal, memorable moments for students. So I don't know how much this one will focus on the sport end of things as is designed, but the book is not just about sports. It's actually about education, business, other life avenues, but it's really, really interesting. And it's all about kind of creating these like crystallized moments that are so impactful in our lives that they motivate us to do other things. So I am a huge Dan Heath fan. He and his brother Chip have read a series of books and I've read a couple of them.
Thank you.
So yeah, I like this Joe Baker guy too. Yeah, this is my world. I love this stuff. Dr. Roush is probably giggling in the background at me going, yep, I've heard her talk about that. Yep, she likes that. So all good. But these are great examples because you get people who are, this guy's an author, this Joe Baker's a researcher, this person is, I'm cheating right now. He's got his stuff all listed here, but these are all Steve Kerr. If you can't love Steve Kerr, I have nothing for you. He's great. So these are all really good examples. If you do like Steve Kerr, he's got a podcast out with Pete Carroll. They did it as a COVID fundraiser and they did a series together. They are super fun to listen to too. Sarah McQuaid actually taught in our department as an adjunct.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, she did. So anyway, I could go on all day, but these are good examples. They show different approaches with interviewing, with segments. They give you the lead-in sound effects, which are a little cheesy. Don't tell John I said that, but they're their typical, it sounds like it almost wants to be like the ESPN jingle, but it's not. So, all right, I'm on to full-on sarcasm now. But so basically that is how I would introduce the podcast if I were going to make it an assignment. And I think, again, the purpose of this is to just appreciate that if you have something you're interested in, you can obviously use all these different opportunities through Kirka and on campus to get more experience. If you're a student in a different department, you can probably ask a faculty member you have a relationship with to supervise you and help you along. And you'll get a different experience in a one-on-one than I'm able to provide in my 1 to 25 to 40 ratio that I juggle. But that's why we're lucky to have the support offices on campus to do that, because CIT can jump in and help with some of the instructional technology too. And I would just say too, I think there will continue to be a growing need to relay information to our future audiences in these multimedia ways. I think it's going to have to be quick, effective, powerful, memorable, take-home messages. You guys sat through almost an hour of this, but we don't tend to do that so much anymore. Certainly don't do it as well as maybe we once did. So I appreciate you hanging with me. I will stick around for questions or any follow-up I can provide.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And actually, I know that this could go both ways, right? So you are sharing it with other faculty and staff about how to incorporate creative, and they're really creative ways of, having images and sound and ideas come to fruition. But I'm hoping the students take away the fact that you don't need, although it's nice to have a faculty mentor or have a class that's dedicated. So it's rare, but I think less rare at Westfield to see faculty who incorporate these different modalities. But you too can do it on your own. And I love the idea that you're giving them a voice and a platform through your class. And what I'm hoping to do through Kirka is to give you and the students another level of a stage to kind of showcase what it is that you're doing, and really to the work you're doing is is fantastic, and it's exactly what our students need in order to prepare for jobs of the future that we don't even know what they are. So thank you so much for sharing your expertise and knowledge and ideas. And actually, you've given me some ideas for how to move forward with Kirka too. So.
Oh, my pleasure. And I look forward to maybe that technology integration, and a reminder, students too, like these are all things you can, thoughtfully put on your resume that let people see you in action. And maybe it takes the nerves off in an interview or something when they, got a little glimpse of you when you're comfortable and prepared.
Yeah, can I ask a question?
Sure, please.
Yeah, so, I mean, this is really amazing. But I wondered how you handle, you say you have like a 40 student per section. And is there any way that you can provide like kind of coaching or mentor before they actually make the video or media public, or you just let they go, or
That's
for
great.
example, they record a video and you kind of, before they make it public, did you kind of coaching them or give them feedback before they made it public, or I don't know. That's
a great question. The honest answer is probably not as exhaustive feedback as I could provide, so some of it is just sort of the inherent learning curve and built-in challenges. But we do devote some time in class to public speaking. We do some public speaking exercises. We do several little timed 2-minute progressions in small groups. We utilize some peer feedback for that. And I ask students, I'm not divulging the questions because they're on here, but I ask some very simple questions that end up being very hard to answer because there's a million things you could say. And then it's that tripped up feeling of what's most important to spew out, right? So we practice that and begin to appreciate what a good explanation is, what a thoughtful answer is, some pros and cons there. I give students the opportunity to share things ahead of time and get feedback. As you might find with other assignments and so forth, some take you up on it and some are up till 3 a.m. the night before. But I will say with this, students tend to a bit be their own best critics because they're pretty hesitant to put something out in video form that doesn't make them look pretty good. So certainly there's feedback and things I would maybe like to see or do differently or improve or build on, what have you, but they tend to be pretty good because I think the vanity and the pride kick in, and that's okay, right? We don't want videos out there where we don't show our best selves. I think rubrics are really important to me too, and there's a lot of step-by-step checklists. So I often say, like, I'm going to sit with the rubric in front of me while I watch you. I usually watch them straight through, and then I watch through with my pauses, and then I specifically go back looking for elements that I might not have caught. So yeah, I probably listen to the things 3 times by the time they get a grade. And unless it's truly awesome and I catch it all the first time and it's check, check, check and done. But the rubric is really helpful. I'd be willing to share that. And I usually say that if I can check off everything on the list, if you can check it off rather, I can too. So I let them feel a little ownership and control over that. So it's not, there is very little, like my students will not say they are unsure where the grade came from or where they lost points. They'll feel very aware of that. We talk about professional attire too. I talk about clothing within reason, and with all due respect to, individual preferences, we just talk about some basic advice on that too.
Yeah. Any students have any other questions? I mean, I think these are just, really great skills that are applicable long after you graduate from Westfield. And that's our goal. Our collective goal here is to make sure that we make you the most competitive applicant you could potentially possibly be. So as you can see, faculty and staff really, they spend a lot of time and effort supporting you in your passions. And so hopefully you take them up on it, right? Be able to document your skills. So.
Tom, you had a question?
Yeah, I was just curious. You mentioned the blogging software or website that you were using. Is that through Google itself, like the Drive? Is that sort of like an app through it?
If you go to Blogger itself, I think it still is a standalone.
Okay.
I can double check because there was a shift in that, so it's a very good question. And
yeah, it seemed like for me, the area. It seemed like, you know how Drive does that thing where you can hit your like 9 dots in the corner of your screen, and then brings you to like Drive or Gmail or, you know, whatever, like calendar. It seemed like it was sort of linked through that, but that was just through mine. Obviously, you're way more the expert on.
Yeah, I think it changed. I think it was. I'm skimming through, and in the interest, it is on there. Yep. I'm gonna. All right. I don't.
Yeah, that's great.
Honest
check that out more.
All right, I'm going to show you this so you can see where it is. Sure. I don't think I have anything overwhelmingly personal showing up on my docs right now, but if I do, you need to all just not look. My life is really not very exciting. It'll be like kidstuff.com, you know.
Yep.
Hold on one sec. Do you see my Google Drive?
Yeah, I do.
All right, nothing glaringly embarrassing on there yet. I can't cover up with that. So if we go over here, this is what he's referring to, and it is right there.
Great, thank you.
I see a lot of teachers
trying to put together a blog for Kirka, and I feel like that software is really great, so I'd like to check it out. Investigate
it's kind of good enough, to be honest. I'd say that's where it falls. I'd say it's good enough. Yeah. Jamboard is on there. My kids, Dr. Jarnovan can probably relate. I think our 8th graders have had an assignment on that. So I think it's kind of funky and creative, but I don't know how how robust it is would be my.
It's a little clunky, but.
I've washed my hands of all 8th grade assignments. He's on his own at this point. I'm sure you are. We are checked out on that.
It is what it is.
A year ago, I was all about it. Now I'm like, remote learning just needs to be done. All right. Quit while I'm ahead. So yes, I think Tom, to your point, it could offer that. I don't think we have anything built in through Westfield, although I might glance while you're on here if you want. Forgive me. So there's the same 9 dots on our email system. And there are a series of apps there. I am less aware of which one could provide a blog, but I would think that the school might like for you to utilize whatever is there. So I really, at the hazard of having no idea what's in my inbox at the moment, I'm not going to click on it publicly, but if you go into your email view and I'm talking with my hands to a reverse screen. You can tell, time to pull the plug on me. But on the left, there are similarly 9 or 12 dots or something there. And then their little apps all have their little names that aren't always intuitive. Like one's called Delve, one's called Kazala. I don't know what that means, but I bet you anything one of these is probably a blogging app. And I think what happens is probably your comfort level, because I think most K through 12 students grow up with Google accounts now in Google Classroom. So I think if you want students to be involved, I think the nature of the beast is they are more familiar with the Google Suite. I think it's faculty are less familiar with it because it's not really part of our, encouraged repertoire on campus for the obvious reasons. And again, I think, because Dr. Jarnovan and I have kids in the same school system, I think we get acquainted with these things through our children is what's probably happened. I don't mean to stereotype faculty with and without kids, but I just think I used Google after I had kids, not before it, in this way, if that makes sense. And now I see the cool things they're doing. And if a middle school teacher has a fun idea, I steal it in a heartbeat, let me tell you, and give them lots of credit. So thank you. And I'm happy to follow up.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you so